And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay. Yeah.
Do you believe that these strikes against these suspected drug boats are legal?
No, they go against all of our tradition. You know, when you kill someone, you should know if you're not at war, not in a declared war, you really need to know someone's name, at least. You have to accuse them of something. You have to present evidence.
When Republicans are the ones in front of cameras calling Trump's military strikes in the Caribbean executions, you know it's not going as Trump planned.
Under international law, even if the boats were engaging in drug trafficking, you couldn't arrest them on the high seas. We don't have the authority to do that. Domestic law, it's debatable, but I think the more we see of it, the more I feel like congressional authorization would be advisable.
Trump and Hegseth have now struck 9 boats, killing dozens. Over 30, 35, 36, the number keeps rising of people who have been killed by these military strikes without any kind of evidence. Just a statement that by Trump, who, as we know, is the most honest person ever. I mean, did Nancy Reagan think this was the war on drugs? Trump has taken that phrase a little too far. The fact is, there were 2 survivors on one of their strikes last week. Rather than bring the survivors who were put on a Navy ship after the strike and after their survival of the strike of their boat, they were put on a Navy ship rather than detain them at Guantanamo Bay, where they would have had the right to a lawyer to sue, habeas corpus saying that they were being held unconstitutionally, and Trump would have had to actually convince a judge that we are in fact in a war against cartels, despite the fact that the violation of such cartel members would be a violation of our criminal code. And we've never actually declared a war. Congress has never declared a war. It's a very odd thing to declare a war against people who are committing crimes. He could have also put them through the regular criminal justice system, where surely they would have had a court-appointed attorney. They would have had to have evidence against them. Rather than doing that, he literally has decided to just return them to their countries of origin, which evidently is Ecuador and Colombia. So here you have him executing people in the Caribbean, saying that this is part of his war and just trust me on the evidence. But if you happen to survive, then you can just walk free. That, I can think of nothing else that proves the existence or lack of evidence, lack of any real evidence that Trump has against these people. Because if he did, he would bring him into trial. And of course, in our justice system, that is not usually how it works. If somebody were to commit a crime and be punishable by death, the alternative usually isn't no trial at all.
Do you agree, Congressman? I mean, first of all, is this legal? Has Congress been shown any proof that these boats are cartels running drugs to the U.S.? Because the question is, why repatriate those 2 recent survivors from a strike instead of bringing them to the U.S. for prosecution?
Yeah, very quickly. No, it's clearly not legal. There is no imminent threat to the U.S. These are extrajudicial killings, which are illegal. Number one. Number two, Mike Johnson's comment just about makes my head explode. No fentanyl comes out of Venezuela. Okay, this shows how the Republicans have no idea what's going on here. Okay, what Donald Trump is doing is he's basically waging a war against Venezuela because he doesn't like Maduro. Bottom line.
And in addition to the bipartisan Senate attention that this is getting, we also saw the resignation of the admiral in charge of that area, Admiral Alvin Hulsey. He only held the position for a year. And this is unusual. Usually they hold it for several years. In addition, this is getting international attention. On October 21st, an independent experts commission by the United Nations Human Rights Council said that these covert actions and threats that the United States is using against Venezuela, that they are being taken place without proper legal basis. These actions also violate the fundamental international obligations not to intervene in the domestic affairs or threaten to use armed forces against another country. End quote. This is coming also at a time as we're seeing and hearing Trump say that the CIA is doing covert operations. Now he says that the strikes against the boats are going so well that they now plan on going on land. All of this gaining international attention, the Human Rights Council calling out the United States' behavior.
It's clear that the Caribbean must remain a zone of peace. And in this regard, we strongly condemn the recent aggression and provocation by the United States of America in our region, manifested by the extrajudicial execution of at least 27 persons. And I think that number has risen within the last yes, including 2 Trinidadians by some 6 drone strikes, blowing up ships out of the waters within our region, and an intense buildup of war machinery off the coast of Venezuela. We thank and stand in solidarity with CARICOM governments, which issued a release reaffirming the principle of maintaining the Caribbean as a zone of peace.
Trump, of course, declared cartels terrorists and that he can declare war against them, even though he never went to Congress. Now he says he does plan on going to Congress, but he's not actually going to ask them to declare war. He's basically just going to tell them that's what he's doing. And he says they're not going to mind. But in the meantime, they're just going to kill people. I mean, he comes right out and says it. He doesn't care if this is lawful, if they're guilty or not. He's just going to kill people. And let's not forget, he tries to say this is about fentanyl. As we know, fentanyl is actually not developed in Venezuela. But you know what Venezuela does have? It has the largest oil reserves in the world. And so whatever you think about the Venezuelan leader there, if you think we are going there for regime change because we care about the people, I think we have already dealt with that with the Iraq war. If you think that somehow we really care about drug criminals at the same time that Trump is pardoning the crypto Binance founder who is basically not following anti-money laundering laws that would actually make it easier for criminals to act without government oversight in the United States. Trump obviously doesn't actually care about the crime, but Venezuela is very interesting to him. Perhaps it's because of the oil.
Fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela. The precursors come from China. It's made in Mexico, a whole bunch of other things. If that was the focus, then the focus should be elsewhere. So this is incredibly troubling. The president of the United States has basically said, I can use the U.S. military to kill whoever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want, and I'll just make up why. Republicans, anyone who cares about America first, about limited government, should be concerned about this. And then the way they're just so casually they're part of a narco-terrorist group. They've been designated as blah. That's not a thing, okay? And I worked a lot when we were taking on ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And when strikes were done against them, A, we had congressional authorization. B, they had a very detailed explanation of who they hit, who that person was, what organizations they were connected to, and why. This is just being made up out of thin air to blow boats out of the water off the coast of Venezuela. And then the president announces that we've got a CIA covert operation in Venezuela. Well, it ain't covert if you're saying it in the middle of a press conference, you moron. So what we're seeing here is Donald Trump just completely unleashed, and the Republican Party and Mike Johnson and all those people doing what they have done day in and day out, which is we are not going to take our job seriously. Whatever Trump does, we're going to defend it. Doesn't matter how stupid we sound. We can start talking about fentanyl in Venezuela and whatever. It doesn't matter. We are simply going to bow down to Donald Trump and let him violate whatever law he wants to violate and then just make up excuses for it. We're starting a war with Venezuela, and everybody ought to be concerned about that.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.